Good afternoon, hello, welcome to the TriathlonDan YouTube channel. Welcome to a video all about my bike split from the Bowood Outlaw Half last weekend. Yes, I'm still going on about that event that I only did the bike ride for. Please do humour me. This was actually my best ever, I'm not going to call it a triathlon bike leg because I didn't do the swim or the run. It's my best ever time trial performance, to be honest, and my best ever ride that I've put together, both in terms of nutrition, pacing, the actual position I was holding, the ride, and so on. It was just the best I've delivered. Let's have a quick look at the summary first of all. Now, I always look at my stats in Training Peaks. I have Training Peaks Premium, which means you can look at all the different data on there, and we'll have a look at what that is now. So in summary, as you can see, the ride was 2 hours and 16 and 51 minutes, 55 miles, training stress score of 185, burnt 2,391 kilojoules, I'll come back to some of these numbers and explain them in a minute. An intensity factor of 0.9, a normalized 316 watts. The variability index is 1.09. My power to heart rate was 3.11%. I don't know what efficiency factor is. 2,500 feet of climbing, 3.12 watts per kilo. That is accurate as well. And 291 watts average. Max 913, what a sprinter. Average heart rate 145, average cadence 78, and average speed 24.1 miles an hour. That's probably about enough that is important. So let's have a quick look back at some of those little measures that I've looked at. Intensity factor. So my theoretical threshold in TT position is about 340 watts. Now, I haven't delivered that this year. The best 25-mile time trial power I've produced was about 325. So if anything, 340 is a bit ambitious. Now, I have always felt that I've been stronger than that. I just haven't delivered it on race day. And I think this result does sort of reiterate that. I have changed my position slightly recently. I've gone a little bit higher with my saddle, a little bit lower with the front end. I changed skin suit. I was a bit comfier. My arms are a little bit longer. I just felt a bit better on the bike. So therefore, I think that's helped me put out a little bit more power. Variability index, I've just clicked off that now. Variability index was 1.09. Now that is quite high. What the variability index is basically the difference between your average power, so there 291, and my normalized power there 316. The lower the variability index is, so if those numbers were the same, it'd be 1. Basically 9% more than 291 is 316. So on a triathlon bike leg, really you're looking for like 1.05 or below, because otherwise those surges will hurt your legs, and you'll then pay for it on the run. Wasn't so much of a problem today because I was obviously only doing the bike ride, but that's something for me to bear in mind. What else haven't I explained on here? I think that's about it. So let's have a look at the actual ride. So I'm going to try and compare and contrast the difference between me riding solo versus me trying to hang on to somebody, then me trying to ride in a group, and those sorts of things, just to sort of see how different the riding is. Now, on here, I put various different things on this graph. I think I've taken all the ones off that I don't want on there. I don't particularly want cadence on there, so let's hide that. So I've got miles an hour in green, my heart rate in red, power in pink, and then the gradient is just the grey graph behind. Now you can use this smoothing tool here just to smooth off the data a little bit, just to make it a bit less busy. It does get rid of the peaks a bit, so I tend to have it around about there, but we'll zoom in and zoom out of this as appropriate. I'm going to look at distance as well rather than time, because I can remember what happened at various distances rather than what time. So I got on the bike right at the front of the race. I had maybe 30 seconds to a minute or so on the second place. I don't really know because I wasn't looking behind me. And we had to run up a hill to get on the bike, so I was already blowing pretty hard. And for the first 9.5 miles or so, I was on my own. So let's go from the start, 9.5 miles in, and let's highlight that. And then we'll see the summary on the right-hand side. So you can see I normalized 315 watts, it was 25 minutes. My variability index was 1.04, which is sort of how I ride. Similar sort of intensity factor. Average power is a bit higher because, of course, the VI was a bit lower. And the average speed was 23.1 miles an hour. There was a decent climb at the beginning. I can do this button here. It says zoom, which shows it me in a bit more detail. Now, the heart rate data was a bit inaccurate at the beginning. My heart rate monitor was playing up, I think, because the contact pads weren't wet. But you can see there's a decent climb at the start. I'm going there pretty slowly at the beginning. Decent power though, sort of, 300-ish watts, 400 watts. And then there's a gradual downhill for a while. A little kick up and uphill, but you see I only get up to sort of 350, 360 watts and then settle back into my rhythm. And then it all fell to bits because Harry Palmer came past me. So we'll unzoom from there. Harry caught me around this climb. So I'll just highlight that. In fact, let me highlight a bigger area and then see where he came past me. So let's zoom into there. This is roughly where Harry came past me. So he wasn't there. And then he came past me around here. So as we can see, let's have a look at that bit. that there is 1 minute 52, a normalized 421 watts, an average 393. I'm basically there trying to get onto Harry's wheel, so you can see that he's come past me. I've kicked on there to try and get into his draft. So when I say in his draft, I mean getting on that 12 meters away from him. You're allowed to draft at 12 meters. There is a benefit. It's not huge, but it's definitely worthwhile having. I wanted to stay at the front of the race. That's what I did. However, then I quickly, or not so quickly, realized that if I look at this bit, I wasn't going to hang on to him. So I dropped down to 330-ish watts for a few more minutes, and he just went into the distance. So I then had to, after that, settle back into my own pace. So let's have a look from there onwards until about, I got caught by some more people, about 20 miles. So this next part here, I settled back into my own pace. Normalized power 288 watts, average 287, so very smooth, very low variability index. Quite a regulated heart rate, about 148. You can see that it's quite evenly paced. I'm relaxing down the hills a little bit. I'm kicking on up the hills a little bit, but nothing too major. I'm keeping it quite smooth. And then it all goes to pot again, doesn't it? Because I get caught. So let's have a look at this. So let's zoom into this area. This is where I roughly get caught by, and I do forget these people's names because I'm not familiar with them, because I'm not used to racing with the actual good athletes. Donald Brooks and Ollie Simon, two very good athletes. So I hope they're very good, because I was struggling to hang on to them. Came past me, and I knew that there was the podium. That was who I needed to hang on to. So you can see, I think it was roughly, so I'm right on my own. You see roughly here, when I kick on, I think that's when they came past me. I was trying to get back in, trying to get in their draft. But this hill here, this is where they really, well, they probably didn't light it up, but this is where riding a group really, really hurt me. So here I pretty much got in their draft and then settled back into what was a normal pace for me again. But on this hill, I really struggled to hang on. These guys were climbing hard. I think they probably knew that I wasn't going to be of much use to them and were pressing on. But let's have a look. So 4 minutes and 4 seconds roughly. 415 watts normalized power. Now, that was hard. Bear in mind, I've already done nearly an hour, about 300 watts. I was fairly flat out going up there, hanging on to those guys. Again, my average heart rate only 150. It was higher than that. That wasn't reading accurate. It's probably 160, 170. I think it was a bit higher than that later on. But yeah, real big dig there. But then as you can see, then after that, we sort of back off a little bit down to 223 watts over the top of the hill, just easing off. My speed is still quite high at 30 miles an hour. So yeah, there we go. Let's have a look at that. This next part then, if we get down to the bottom of this descent, let's have a look at the next sort of few miles there. So how long was this part in distance? How does it say? So 26 minutes. Let's have a zoom in on that and have a look. So this is where riding in a group is quite surgy, because I'm right on the back. I didn't take a single turn. These guys are much stronger than me. I'm not going to be of any help propelling them forward any faster. And I knew that if I took a turn, the next hill we came to, if they were going to climb like they had just climbed that climb, I'd be straight out the back. So let's have a look at some of this. Let's just take a small section here. 8 minutes, normalized power 333 watts, but the variability index, you look at that, 1.11, that's quite high. My average power is quite low at 299, because it's basically so surgy. So like, look at this part here, I'm going 280, 270 watts. When we come to a little hill, bam, spike up to 400, 480, 500 watts. Up that little climb, then it goes down again, then it goes up again, because you're playing that game of trying to not get too close to them, but also on the hill, it's a bit of a slingshot effect. The person on the front's getting to the hill first, so they're then powering on, and then the second person's then powering on, the third person's a bit behind. When you go over the top of the hill, the gaps then opening up, so you have to kick on as well out of that. Let's have a look at a bit more detail. So I think that goes on for a little bit longer. Let's look a bit further into the ride. Let's perhaps have a look at an easier bit. So how about this part here, leading down towards the final few climbs. 280 watts, that's quite an easy bit. That's easier than it had been earlier on. You can see some quite low sections of power here, so about 210, 220 watts for some quite good speed. If we look at the speed's there, isn't it? So I'm doing 24, 25 miles an hour, and I'm quite often, yeah, okay, that power's okay, but like I'm quite often doing 250, 260 watts, which is quite low for the speed we were doing, sort of 26, 27 miles an hour. It was into a slight headwind as well. And that's pretty much how the ride continued, quite surgy on and off. If you compare that to the first half an hour, my power was very smooth, whereas now here, it's a lot more up and down. I actually think this sort of riding does suit me more. I do a lot of riding with my local club, and for those that ride with cycling clubs, you'll know that it's pretty much just a smash fest most of the time, and that's what it felt like to me. Let's have a look at the finish, because I did try to have a look. So the last 15 minutes, normalised 367 watts. That's fairly intensive. And again, the VI was very, very high. Now, this hill here, I believe I was still sat on the back, but that was very, very hard. So you can see here, that, okay, it's too small for it to pick up any sort of power, I think. Yeah, it's too short for it to pick up any sort of power, average power reading. But you can see there, I'm up to sort of 500-600 watts up a little kick, and down again, and then we're going up another little hill, and they obviously kick on again, 450 watts for 45 seconds, and again, eases off down a hill. And then I actually try on this hill here, an attack, and I regretted that. So I didn't know the course very well. I thought the climb was a lot shorter than it was. So coming to this last climb here, I actually thought, right, I'm going to attack around these two. I'm going to be first into first in that group into transition. So second everyone's transition. That did not happen. So 34 seconds, normalized 571 watts. I had a big kick up to sort of like 700 watts to try and get 700 watts to try and get away, and it just didn't stick. And you can then see I then faded and faded and faded. And if I look to the top of the climb, I actually averaged 406 watts for 6 minutes, which is fairly decent that far into the ride. But my power was up high and then was coming down and down and down, 350, 360, 300, and it was just flagging. But then what I found was from here, I was able to keep at about, again, that's too short to get sort of power reading. I felt like I averaged about 300 watts on the flat. And I find I'm quite good at that. When I'm absolutely blowing and flat out, I can still hold a sort of decent tempo. And then when we turned into, if we have a look here, when I turned into Bearwood Grounds again, and it's not cricket, it's not fair, but that's just what I did. It was quite twisty. You can see here it's quite fast. We're doing sort of 31 miles an hour, so I wasn't doing much power. When it went up a little bit, and when it was a bit straighter, I put in a massive, well, fairly decent attack. Basically just sprinted around these guys just to get to first into transition. So we see here max power 913. I literally sprinted to try and get around them, just because I wanted to get to Liz first. I wanted her to get on the run first. So there we go. I hope that sort of gives you an overview about the different sorts of riding in a group versus riding on your own. I think it's more physically taxing to ride in a group sometimes, but you are riding faster. I would not have been that fast if I wasn't following those two guys. But yeah, different sort of ride. You can see just by looking at a glance there how spiky all this area is and how smooth that area is. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully I'll get the chance at some point in the future to ride with a front group again. Thank you to the two chaps who let me ride on the back. I'm sure if you really put the hammer down and wanted to drop me, you could have done so. Thank you very much for that. And yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. If you have ridden in front packs or ridden in bike packs, what do you think? Is it fair to draft? I know that my friend Triple Brutal James disagrees with it and says you shouldn't be able to do it at all. But the rules are the rules, and 12 meters is the rules. That's what we stick to. So yeah. I'll leave it there then. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please do hit the subscribe button down below. And I'll see you tomorrow at 4 PM for a pretty standard training vlog, because we're getting back into training. We're going to hit this winter hard. Let's go.